So I've been asked to explain the difference between instinct and intuition, and I would absolutely love that because I just love talking about this stuff. So, contrary to popular belief, instinct and intuition are two completely different functions. One is a primal function, so it goes back to our early evolution, and the other is like an advanced function which is developed as we evolve as a species. So for example, your instinct is it's inherent in you. You will work on instinct. Your instincts will kick in and trigger the fight or flight response regardless of whether you try to or not. You cannot stop your instinct from kicking in because it is there to trigger the fight or flight. The adrenaline, it gives you an adrenaline rush, and it lets you know whether you need to stand and fight for your life or to run away in order to save it. So for example, pareidolia, you know how you see faces in objects, and you'll see faces inside patterns and stuff. Pareidolia is actually a primal instinct that goes back to when we were the lowest in the food chain, and we would have to keep an eye out for predators hiding inside flora and fauna, for example, like jungle predators. And so you would instinctively look for faces inside like the leaves and the bushes and the trees and that in order to look for predators that were going to eat you and your babies. Your intuition, however, is developed over time in order to enhance your awareness of your conscious ability. And that is more to guide you on your path through your evolution rather than keeping you alive. So when you go to places that scare you, it's not your intuition that triggers your need to be alert and want to run when something happens. It's your primal instincts, because you're sensing something that is unnatural and unusual, and with your inability to be able to detect whether it's a threat or not, it puts you on a heightened sense of alert, and then you become triggered, like the first sign, the first noise, the first shadow. It triggers that adrenaline rush, the dopamine kicks in, and boom, you're off, you know. So for example, I'll give you another couple of examples of instinct. See newborn babies. When you can't stop a newborn baby under a month from crying, when they won't stop crying, if you hold them in your hand where your support, if you hold them up in the air, like on the original Lion King when they hold baby Simba up, but if you have with the baby with their stomach facing down and their face facing towards the ground, and you just wriggle their butt like that, they'll stop crying because it takes them back to when they were sperm, swimming through the fallopian tubes and through, dad, in order to get to the egg, and it triggers that primal response, and they'll stop crying because they'll think they're back in the comfort of mum and dad's little universe that was created for them. Also with newborn babies, if you get your finger in your hand, and you just slightly touch their hand like that, or the bottom of their feet, they'll automatically grip like that. They'll automatically do that. And that's a primary instinct from when we were primates and used to have to cling on to our mother's back sore stomachs when they were walking along the trees and that. You know how you see monkeys and apes, they'll cling on to mum's fur? When you do that to a newborn baby and they close their fist or they curl their toes like that, when you touch their foot or their hand, that takes them back to when they were baby monkeys or baby primates or baby mammals that used to have to cling onto mum's stomach or mum's back. That's instinct as well. Another instinct is, you know how babies have that fear of falling, how if you take a baby and go like that with them, they'll go, oh, you know, and get a fright. That's because when we were having to live in trees, we'd fall asleep in trees, and the fear of falling is still triggered in us today as a primal instinct for when we used to be monkeys sleeping in trees and the fear of falling out of them, and apes as well. Your intuition is developed over time in order to help you on your spiritual journey to enhance your conscious growth and awareness. So your intuition will tell you you need to be somewhere at a certain time, that you need to do something at a certain time, but you won't know why you're doing it. Your intuition is guided without cause or reason. And then there'll always be a greater meaning as to why you trusted that little voice in your gut that was telling you what to do. With your instincts and your intuition, the bridge between the two is based on the strength of your subconscious mind and how you are able to use logic, doubt, reason, and common sense, because they are the triggers that will keep you alive and make sure that you are able to escape from threats or danger. Whereas your intuition never second guesses itself, it just does it actively without conscious awareness and without second thought. So I always say to people, whenever you have second thoughts about something, it's your intuition telling you to think again, because you're about to head down a path that could be wrong for you, or you could be leading yourself into danger. So in the other video, you know, I was saying that because children run primarily on intuition before they hit puberty, that's why they'll have a tendency to go off with a neighbour who ends up being a child abuser or a pedophile or, you know, a murderer, and that because they are so trusting and they can't tell the difference between instinct and intuition. And it's not usually until the last minute that they, you know, ask for their mum or that they want to go home, because they'll sense danger, but unfortunately by that point it's too late. And because I have spent many years having to help families cope with the murders of children and missing children and children who have been, you know, trafficked for sex and for satanic rituals and things like that, for devil worshipping, not Satanists, because Satanists don't do that. That's a whole video in itself. I've learned a lot. Unfortunately, it helped me master the understanding of, you know, the difference between how the subconscious mind and the conscious mind tunes one's instincts versus their intuition. We need our subconscious minds, and we should never be shutting our subconscious minds down. There are a lot of people out there that are teaching classes on how to teach people to shut their subconscious mind down, which is a fatal, stupid thing to do, because they're shutting down their logic, and logic keeps you alive. Logic helps you deal with things like paranoia. Doubt and reason and common sense help you see the truth and the realities of things that may be, like, if your common sense, if your sense of logic and reason are stronger than your ability to manifest paranoia in a situation, then that will put logic into what it is you're being paranoid about and bring balance to the paranoia, because then you're able to see past what it is the darker parts of your subconscious mind are trying to tell you. And your logic and common sense, doubt and reason are then taking you over to the conscious side, where you're then able to remove the paranoia and the anxiety and bring in serotonin and dopamine instead. I said, hang on, I need to apologise, I need to do a correction. When I said the fight or flight response, I said adrenaline and dopamine. What I should have said was adrenaline and cortisol. Those are the fight or flight chemicals in the brain. The ones that bring you calm and release and bring you to a higher conscious connection is dopamine and cortisol. Oh, dopamine and serotonin. Sorry. Dopamine and serotonin are the chemicals in the brain that give you a natural high, pain relief, natural pain release. They'll bring you calm, it'll bring you happiness, it'll bring you balance. Adrenaline and cortisol is what kicks in for the fight or flight response. It's the chemicals in the brain that I personally believe trigger the DLPFC in your brain, which is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is your sense of justice, your sense of morality, your sense of doing the right thing, gets triggered, I personally believe, through a rush of cortisol or adrenaline, which then will trigger your fight or flight response or your need to protect and defend. Whereas, like, when you're zoned out and you're, all zen, you have cortisol and you have dopamine and sorry, I'm just getting a download. Oh, I don't know what's triggered that. Dopamine and serotonin. Where was? Sorry, I'm so sorry about that. Oh my gosh, I just a police car just went past the house while I was talking, and I just saw all these police cars outside the White House, and like people being taken away in handcuffs, and FBI cars and CIA cars and military vehicles surrounding the White House. That I'm so sorry about that. Gosh. Yeah, so anyway, so when you're all happy and zen and in the feel goods and you're calm and you have balance, then that means you have, serotonin and dopamine, and it brings you that calm. People who suffer from depression have lowered serotonin and dopamine in the brain. And so the lower the frequency, the lower your, the darker your subconscious mind, the less dopamine and serotonin your brain produces. And, that's when people will take drugs and things like that. But it is completely possible to raise your serotonin and dopamine levels just by eating healthier and living a healthier lifestyle, because then it triggers the vagus nerve, which then kicks in and starts producing the dopamine and serotonin for you naturally. And it also slows down the aging process and makes you healthier. So that's basically the difference. I can't apologise enough for the glitch in my brain. I think it's because I was starting to get a download while I was talking, and it was I was switching in between being in the creation frequency and in physical reality, and so I got that glitch and I was messing up my words because I was jumping between the two realities while trying to receive a transmission. So my physical body was trying to act like everything was okay, while my conscious self was trying to send a message to have a jump while I was talking, basically. So if you imagine your physical body is a mech suit, imagine, like in Aliens, that movie Aliens, where she's in that big yellow robot and she's sitting in the middle controlling it. Your intuition, your conscious self sits in that part of your stomach like a mech suit, which is why whenever your intuition kicks in, you feel it in your gut. When you have second thought, I always say second thoughts are a second chance at not making the first mistake. So when your intuition kicks in and you feel it in your gut, when the voice in your head is going, oh, are you sure about this? And it's kicking off in your gut, that's when your instincts and your intuition are working in alignment with each other and trying to get you to take a pause to rethink what it is you're about to do, because you may be in fear of making a mistake that could affect your life forever or even cost you your life. When you know you're on the right track, you do it without second thought. When you don't listen to your instincts and you let the voice in your head override what your gut is telling you, and it turns into paranoia and negative behavior and negative thought patterns, that's when you've slipped into the subconscious mind and you've given over to the paranoia and the fear and the anxiety. And then, because what happens is, because you know your worst fears and you know what your triggers are, that's when you trigger a response in reality, because you then manifest what it is you create. So you can, by overriding your overriding your intuition, you can walk yourself into danger or karmic retribution, because you will convince yourself you think you know better, even though it's going against what you feel in your gut is the right or wrong thing to do. And you don't listen to that, and then you end up walking into danger, trouble, or karmic retribution, which is absolutely essential for the evolution of the species of man and all life forms, because it thins out the herd, and it separates the weak from the strong. So the strong, the strong shall survive, the weak shall perish. It's the weaker genes, it's the weaker animals, it's the ones who don't tune themselves in like that get eaten by the predators, and saves the ones who found the balance in both intuition and instinct. And it's basically survival of the fittest, and it is absolutely essential, because it separates the weak from the strong. And you know how I constantly say I don't like weak people? I know it's not a very nice thing to say, but weak people are dangerous. Weak people can lead strong people into trouble and into danger. And in my line of work, I can't have that, because I'm already dealing with people who are recovering from the effects of like suicide and the traumas of war and child abuse, and I'm trying to protect children from being abused, and I work with murder cases and unsolved cases and unsolved mysteries and missing people and things like that, and I can't have people around me or in my life who are weak, because they are dangerous. And they, like an army is only as strong as its weakest soldier, because regardless of what your rank is, when you're in the battlefield, when you're fighting a war, you have to have each other's backs in order to survive and get out alive. And if you're around people who aren't as strong as you, they can pull you down with them, especially if you're dealing with tall poppy syndrome, where they're threatened by the stronger ones, so they all work together to try and pull the stronger ones down. So then I always say to people, cut the cord and go, just leave, because they're leading you to your death. They're leading you into darkness, and I can't have that. I don't like weak people, and weak people are the sort of people who are swayed by popular opinion, and popular opinion isn't always honest or correct opinion. As just because a lot of people think something doesn't mean it's right. Weak people are people who make excuses for their behaviour. Weak people will lie to try to cover their tracks. Weak people won't admit to their faults and responsibilities. Weak people will try and pass responsibility onto other people. Name blame, name shame, that sort of thing. They will resort to underhanded measures in order to get what they want, or to achieve a certain goal, they will manipulate people and situations in order to get what it is that they want. And basically, they're the ones you have to leave to be eaten, because it's survival of the fittest. It's either you go down or they go down. And if you're like me and you've got a sort of life purpose where you're trying to protect and defend the pure and innocent, and you've been put here with the express purpose of helping humanity heal from the effects of war and grief and fear and pain and suffering and, historical traumas and that, and you're trying to show people how beautiful the supernatural is and bring balance to people's paranormal minds and that, weak people around someone like me is dangerous and can be fatal. So I hope that helped. And I know it might sound harsh what I said about weak people, but you all know the sort of people I'm talking about. These are people who will put on a front and appear to be someone they're not in front of other people and be someone behind closed doors, and they're dangerous. They are they're not people who are in tune with either instinct or intuition. They run purely on the shadow side, or willful ignorance and stupidity. People who know that what they're doing is wrong, but they will turn their back on it anyway because they are cowards and they're too afraid to admit that what they're doing is wrong or what they got involved in was wrong. And so they think that if they turn a blind eye to it, the problem will go away. But you can't lie in the creation frequency. So even when you're asleep, your intuition always knows what you've done wrong, and the lies will always come back to bite you in the end. Lies will always be revealed in the end. Because your conscious self will never let you live it down, and it will always come back to you in feedback as things like you put on weight, your skin turns bad, your hair falls out, because your conscious mind, your soul, will always tell your body when there's an imbalance of the mind. So when your mind is balanced, your body is healthy, you feel healthy, you look healthy. And when your mind, that's because you've found that balance between the three states of being, body, mind and soul. But when there's an imbalance, and your conscious mind or your soul isn't happy with how you're conducting yourself when you're in your little mech suit, it begins to start breaking down the mechanics of your mech suit. And then you basically start becoming weaker gened, and your cells start breaking down. Things like your reproductive system will produce either, like, say if you're a female, for example, you'll have miscarriages and babies with deformities because you're breaking the cells down, and then you're basically cursing the bloodline of your children with weaker genes because you are slowly deteriorating. And I always say that when the mind goes, the body goes, the soul is soon to follow. Because then your soul just goes, I'm not having this. I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm out. I'm done. And then, like, that's when you'll have an accident or die or get sick or, whatever. And you'll just clock out. So I hope that's explained it all. And I'm really, really sorry about that glitch there. I don't know I do know what came over me, obviously. Like I said, I think I was starting to receive a download while I was trying to talk from a conscious perspective in reality while receiving a portal with a download. Because usually when I get my downloads, I'll get them first and then I'll say them out and then I'll record them. It's not very often that I'll get the downloads like as I'm just in mid-conversation, and it can be very, very distracting because it creates like a glitch between what it is you're thinking, what it is you're seeing, and what it is you're talking about at the time. So it can be like a little bit discombobulating, but I caught onto it quick and I was able to correct my mistake. So I hope I wasn't too confusing. And if I was, just let me know and I'm happy to tell you and recorrect it. I just don't want to have to do this video all over again now because of the fact that I recorded a jump mid-conversation. As far as I know, I think that's only happened once before with the Odin brings news of Odin brings the flame of truth or something last year, and it's very, very discombobulating because you're then perfectly aware of the fact that you're trying to control a mech suit and the person in the mech suit, as well as the controls that he's using, as well as who it is that is sending the message to the mech suit to send signals to the man in the mech suit, who then has to press all the right buttons to make you function properly. So I hope that helped. And if you have any questions, you know where I am. And yeah, I hope I made sense. I'm going to listen to this back. If I made sense, I'm going to upload it. But if I didn't make sense, then there's no point me telling you any of this because I'm just going to delete the video. But yeah, so I will talk to you later. And thank you for asking me that because like it's something that people think that intuition and instinct are the same thing, and they're not. One's a primal instinct and an absolute essential primary function for the evolution of the species of man and all living things in order to thin out the herd and separate the weak from the strong so that the healthier, stronger of the gene pool can go on to be, survival of the fittest, basically. So, and also I want to point out that that isn't the case with people who are murder victims. When people who are murder victims will go off with somebody they trust who don't listen to their instinct until it's too late, I'm not saying that they are weaker. And people in situations like that, they are what I call martyrs for the cause. These are basically angelic souls who choose to have a tragic ending and tell a tragic story through their historical grief account in order to teach lessons to humanity. When I've worked with people like this, like with my Highway of Tears girls and things like that, it is through my work with murder victims that I have learned the role that these amazing selfless souls play in the evolution of man, because the wisest souls are the ones who live the shortest lives, the most tragic lives, or have the greatest lessons to teach humanity. They'll come here to live a short life or a tragic life or a hard life in order to teach humanity a lesson from their existence. So with murder victims and that, I am not saying that they were being thinned out from the herd. They are the exception, not the rule. They are the exception of what it is to be a selfless, conscious being who has chosen to come down in order to live a tragic life or a short life to make impact on the people around them, the wider community, and with like Ted Bundy victims and things like that, the Dharma victims and that, in order to teach humanity and how we should never be allowed to conduct ourselves again. So they are teaching souls, and they are basically what you would call angelic beings. So I just had to put that in there because I would not want anyone to think, especially in any of the cases that I've worked on over the years, I would not want anyone to think that I'm saying that a murder victim or a victim of a tragedy has been thinned out from the herd. I'm talking about karmic lessons, people who have done things, who set themselves on a course to karmic destruction because they didn't listen to their intuition, because they didn't do the right thing. And of course, it's like, it's the common thing of like when there's a zombie apocalypse, run faster than the fat person. Let them be the ones that get eaten. And I can say that because I used to be fat, and I always used to say that if there was ever a zombie apocalypse, I'd be the one that would get left behind to be eaten, so at least my family could, have a chance to escape. That's making light of it, obviously, but you know what I'm trying to say. And it's all in good fun, and I hope you've been able to learn from it. And if you do have any questions, you know where I am.